I'm going to introduce our host and interviewer for this evening, who is Sarah Weinman. Sarah is the news editor for Publishers Marketplace and writes the monthly Crime Wave mystery and suspense column for the National Post. Her work has also appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times, and the Washington Post. She is also a crime novelist herself. It never ends. And she has a new book called Troubled Daughters, Twisted Wives, Stories from the Trailblazers of Domestic Suspense. And her book will also be for sale tonight along Sue's, and both authors will be signing, of course, at the end of the event. So let's get to it. You're not here to see me. Let's welcome Sarah Weinman.
Thank you all for coming. This is an amazing capacity crowd tonight. And while I hope some of you might be here to see me, the reality is you're all here to see Sue Grafton. And the cliche is that she needs no introduction, but I think for our purposes, she is the author of the Kinsey Millhone series. They've been best-selling and pioneering and influential books since A is for Alibi was published in 1982. The newest one is W is for Wasted. Please welcome Sue Grafton. So Sue, I wanted to start with a quote that comes near the beginning of W is for Wasted. And I think that this quote is instructive on multiple levels. This was October 7th, 1988, and it looked like things were as bad as they were going to get. On the national front, congressional spending was a whopping $1.06414 billion. I think I got that right. And the federal debt was topping out at $2.6013 billion. Unemployment hovered at 5.5%, and the price of a first-class postage stamp had jumped from 22 cents to 25. I tend to disregard issues over which I have no control. Like it or not, the politicians don't consult me about economic policies, budget cuts, or the gross national product, whatever that is. I might voice an opinion, if I had one, but as nearly as I can tell, nobody pays the slightest attention, so what's the point? My only hope is to be the master of my own small universe, which is centered in a Southern California town, 96 miles north of Los Angeles. So in that paragraph, which comes about 2 pages in, we learn a lot about how Kinsey Millhone thinks, both for those who have never met her before and for those who've been following along since A. So let's unpack that a little bit. One is, things are a little bit worse now.
I know. Yeah, can you all hear? If you can't hear, raise your hand. There's nothing worse being some people going blah, 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 and you're going, so if you can't hear, raise your hand. Thank you.
Oh, there's one person in the back who can't hear, so I think you may have to project a little bit.
Okay, I'll bring her forward. I mean, I got all that information on the internet, which is where you get everything these days, you know. You can look on the internet, you can get the phases of the moon for any given day, going back about a decade or 2 or 4. So that's great information.
It is. But of course, I talk to you as we're in day 2 of a government shutdown across the border, which is why when
I think it's a great idea. Shut it down, save all that taxpayers' money. I bet we do really well without them.
Well, what's funny is that here in Canada, if you shut down the government, it dissolves, there's a new election, whereas in the States, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Exactly.
But the point being is that it's a good way to kind of introduce that things were a lot different 25 years ago. And as I think is well known for people familiar with your work, is that time moves a lot slower in the Kinsey Millhone universe. Yeah. So when did you first realize you had to do that?
Well, when I came up with the idea of doing the alphabet, it was a really brilliant moment in my life, I got to tell you that. I understood that if I aged her 1 year for every book, it would get kind of ridiculous, you know. Right now she'd be 63, which I was myself once, and I can assure you it's a great age, but not for knocking guys down and punching them in the face. I don't do that much of it at my age. So I decided she needed to age more slowly. So technically speaking, she ages 1 year for every 1 year for every 2.5 books. So she's now 38. And I've got 3 books. I'm thinking to take it up to maybe New Year's Eve, 1989.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I know that you've said in the past that it was going to end in 1990, so has time slowed down a little bit, even further?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's like when these stories come to me, I do sit there and think, now wait, what season should it be? You know, seasons are interesting. And so we'll just see. I don't calculate these things in advance. I fly by the seat of my pants. And I don't tell Kinsey Milhone, she tells me. So I'm just happy she shares part of her life with me. There are many things about her that she assures me are none of my damn business. Okay.
What things, even after so many books,
Yeah.
have you been trying to get her to tell you that she still won't?
Well, you know, it's on a need-to-know basis. For instance, when I got to the end of F is for Fugitive, I realized that was a book about fathers. If you look at it, it's all about father. I notice when I turn my head that way, the sound's, okay, I'm never going to look at you because you'll never hear what I'm saying. And I needed an image to end that book with, and all of a sudden I understood those last moments in that car when her parents were killed. And it just came to me in a kind of reverie. And it was just the perfect thing I needed for that book. But backing up to your original question, it's been a blessing to be stranded in the 80s because life was so simple then. You could have a meal with someone and they wouldn't be texting.
You don't have phones like
Yeah,
this?
no cell phone, no internet. Life was just easier. And the beauty of it is that Kinsey Milhone does her sleuthing the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
You know, she goes to the public library. I'm going to just hold this like this. She goes to the public library where every good detective does quite a bit of work. She goes to the Hall of Records. She goes to the courthouse. She does surveillance sitting in her car. And it makes a much more dramatic and interesting job, in my opinion.
But do you find, like, especially as you're working on the books, do you feel some weird time differential, like you're stuck in 1988 and you have to be brought back into 2013?
It isn't 1988. No, I like
Remember
that.
this thing, Sue?
Yeah, right. No. I do have to do research. It's hard. To me, 1988 seems like day before yesterday. And yet, life has changed very, very rapidly. So I sometimes have to do research just remembering what was going on.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, I want to talk about the book itself a little bit, but first we obviously have to talk about the titles because they themselves have become the show. And this year, you did something different where you actually invited your readers to guess
Yes.
which one it would be. And I wondered, why do that now as opposed to, you know, books past?
We've done it. We did it with J is for Judgment at what was ABA in those years. Somebody misunderstood and thought I was asking them to name the book. No.
That's Janet Ivanovich.
Mommy does that, you know. I named the books, but it was fun to see what people guessed. And about 25 people got it right, and they got a free advanced reader's copy of it.
But 25 out of however many thousand submitted is not a lot.
Well, W was interesting. It could have been Witness, Warrant, Wanted, Weapon, Wicked. You know, I had a lot of options. But when I saw the direction this book was taking, it seemed like Wasted was a nice...
What's funny is that when I was doing research for tonight's interview and I was Googling around, W is for Witness is still a top search term.
I know, but see, look at it. Witness, I'm already committed to a storyline. Either it's got to be a jury, you know, or witness to a crime. It just didn't generate any internal excitement.
And the thing with Wasted is it means so many different things. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about without getting too heavy into spoilerdom, because we know that's bad, but I know that you did a lot of research into like medical fraud and experiments and things like that. And I wondered what prompted you to do that sort of research. Did you know going in that this was a line of inquiry that you wanted to do?
I did know that, and I have the kind of mind, I learn everything for one book, and then I cancel, delete. It's just gone. And so, to me, California criminal law is just always a surprise. It's like, really? Homicide? You know? So, whatever research I have done for past books is what I just don't have room for it in my head. And so I knew I needed to do a lot of research. I love the medical field. Before I wrote books, I worked as a medical secretary in medical front office. Low white uniform, low white shoes. It was so much fun. when I graduated, I'll just
Oh, yeah, of course.
digress.
No, that's fine.
When I graduated from the University of Louisville is the way we say it, I had a degree in English literature with minors in humanities and fine arts, which is to say I was unemployable. So I taught myself to type, and in those days in the States, it was Ben Casey and Dr. Kildare. I thought I'd like it. I could do this. So I pretended I knew medical terminology and got hired by doctors who can't write anything anyway. What did they know? And so for years I worked. I did Cottage Hospital, working down in the financial clinic or, medical clinic. And so I'm very attracted to medical issues to begin with. And so that was one appeal.
But by the flip side, do you find yourself going online to research like horrible diseases and then like spooking yourself, or do you manage to avoid that?
Online, you just gather a lot of information and sort it out as you need to.
The other thing too, to go back to this whole wasted theme, is that the book opens where Kinsey is being asked to investigate, and there's what seems to be a John Doe. And there's an earlier book of yours, Q is for Quarry, that deals with a Jane Doe that I believe is still unidentified, unless I'm wrong.
I went to a dinner party one night, and I was sitting next to a retired forensic pathologist. And I had just come up with the word quarry, which I loved because it means the hunted, and it means the murder, in fact, took place in a quarry. And he said to me, in 1969, we found a young woman, a homicide victim, and he said he did the post-mortem exam, and he said, we have never figured out who she is, and he said, we still have everything. He said he thought she would be quickly identified because she had very odd dental, her teeth were odd. She had a lot of dental work done, and she had malocclusion, buck teeth. And so he said to me in the most casual manner imaginable, would you like to see the jaw? And I went, oh, yes, I would. Oh. So I went down to the sheriff's department, were so amazing to me. They opened all their files. It was a cold case. There was no danger of my blowing anything. So I got to see the pants she was wearing that were hand sewn. I got to see her sandals, her earrings, her fingerprints. And I got interested in the notion of who she might be. So I invented an ending to her story. But much of the material I pulled straight out of those files. Now, here's the good part. I'm on tour this year. I always forget where I was. I was in Denver, Colorado at the Tattered Cover, and a woman named Leora, who was probably in her 70s, came up with this incredible theory about who this woman was. Because ever since the book has come out, there have been people calling in saying maybe it's my Aunt Maudie. And I have now lost her last name and the contact number. So I put the word out on Facebook. It's like, I am looking for Leora in Denver, Colorado. I hope she'll connect up. But when I get back to Santa Barbara, I'm going to talk to the sheriff's department about this idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be great.
I did wonder if you had been able to find out who she really was. I had seen your Facebook message.
Well, I'm not sure we will ever know. We'll never know who killed her. But some theorize that this was right around the Sharon Tate murders. And there's some sense that maybe Charlie Manson's boys came up to Santa Barbara and did her in. I don't know. But it would be the crowning achievement of my career if she could be identified and returned to her people.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, I think, big themes in your work in general, but it really comes through in W, is this sense of, I guess, making up different families. And I feel like, with Kinsey, who has such a complicated relationship with her own family, and I really love how you've been able to explore that through the whole series, but it really feels like, as you will all find out, that this really deepens in new ways. And so I wonder, just like, when you're working on this and trying to figure out what new familial relationships will pop up for poor Kinsey, how that goes about.
Well, in J is for Judgment, I have these ideas like, oh, here's a good idea. Sometimes I regret those good ideas, but in J is for Judgment, I thought, wouldn't it be keen if Kinsey ended up investigating her own life? So she's looking for Wendell Jaffe. This takes place down in Perdido, which is actually Ventura, California. And she knocks on a door, and somebody says, "Are you kin? Are you related to the Kinsey family up in Lompoc?" Because her first name was so unusual. And she's thinking, absolutely not. But something about it bothers her. So she goes back, and she has a copy of her parents' marriage certificate. Sure enough, up comes this whole piece of family. Well, Kinsey has always prided herself on being a loner. She takes this perverse pride in being without family, and she's totally nonplussed by the idea of these relatives. So they just become such a burden to her. She's cranky. She don't want to do family stuff. She don't want to sing around the piano. She don't want to do any of that. And so from J until U is for Undertow, she's working on this, partly because I couldn't figure it out. So I thought, I better not keep writing this till I know what we're doing here. So some of that appears, I think, in MS for Malice. Her cousin, Tasha, hires her to do a piece of work. And I thought, family feuds take forever. Some people never sort those out, so I thought I might as well just do it in my own good time. But there was a reader who wrote me a little note and said, well, now we've heard about Kinsey's mother's family, what about her father's? I went, good question. So this was the book where I thought to tackle that. And the trick was, I couldn't do it if I was going to repeat the whole emotional cycle that I went through with J is for Judgment. So I had to figure out a way for her to get information and a way to react to it that wasn't just repetitious. So fortunately, I did it very well.
Well, I think that's one thing that you're very clear is that you don't want to repeat yourself. I mean, especially when clearly you have this constraint of the alphabet,
Right.
that the last thing you want to do is write the same book over and over again. And I know several books ago, you started introducing additional points of view, and you do the same thing in W, and it's a very pungent and, well, he's a sleazy guy.
Well, these books, I think of them, for instance, I think of MS for Malice as my ghost story, because there's this ghost that appears, apropos of nothing, but ghosts sometimes do that, you know. And I think of Ennis for Noose as my Western, because it's sort of set in the boonies, and she's escorted out of town by the sheriff at one point. And so I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it be keen to do time travel? And then I thought, but I can't do time travel because I don't write science fiction. And Shadow, you know, my dark side, piped up and said, I will tell you how to do time travel. Type July 5, 1955, and just be there. So that's how I figured out that I could go back in time. I mean, it's obvious now, isn't it? I grant you I am slow. But what I understood, that was S is for silence, is that that story is about a gal named Violet Sullivan who's been missing for 34 years. And I understood that all it would be is a series of interviews. Kinsey would be interviewing everybody left alive, and how would she know if anybody was telling her the truth? So I thought, let's just let the reader see what really happened. And then, you know, the reader will understand the story as it takes place. And the fun of that was really the reader knows things that Kinsey never understands. And
so I take it now that you're doing multiple points of view that you're going to stick with that?
No, because here's the rule. I make all these rules for myself. The rule is just because I did it once doesn't mean every book has to be that way. What I do when I look for a story and start putting it together, I have to decide who will carry the story. Obviously, most of it is carried by Kinsey Mulhone, but if I'm doing other points of view, if there's portions of the story she could not possibly know, I will sometimes let another character carry that. And I think that gives a complexity and a richness to the reading from the reader's point of view. Now, I just had someone on Facebook who said, I just hate that multiple point of view, and every time I read that, I feel gypped. And I thought to myself, that's making a bad remark about gypsies, right?
Yes.
But I didn't accuse her of that. And I said, why don't you read somebody else? You know,
There's so many other people to read.
there are lots of other writers. You know, I said, that is the power of a reader. You get to vote with your wallet. If you think my language is too salty, read Mary Higgins Clark. She doesn't even say damn, you know? So, I mean, it's like I'm at a point, it's like you're not going to blackmail me with your disapproval. And I'm not going to do that to you either.
That happened to you while you were writing one of your books, where you had received an email accusing you of bad language, and all of a sudden you got blocked.
I know, right? That was J.S.
It was
Judge.
yeah.
I mean, because I'm a good Southern girl. You know, I'm not here to offend anybody. I'm really not. And so I was getting all these letters from people who complain. I mean, I keep saying, I don't actually cuss. Kinsey sometimes does, and the bad guys do. But I usually say, I clean it up for you. You should hear the way criminals talk. It's just disgusting. So I damp it down for you just as a courtesy. And so I had begun to self-censor. You know, it's like I'd get to one of those good ones. I'd be good. Now, you don't have to say that. You could say shoot or poo-poo or something, you know.
Or gosh darn.
And I got 8 chapters into that book, and the prose was dead and flat. And I knew I was in trouble. This is a long story. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So I got a phone call from a woman I'd worked with in Hollywood, one of the 3 people in Hollywood I'd ever agree to work with again. And she said
That's saying
to me,
something.
one of them's dead now, and I didn't do it. She said to me, do you remember when you told me that if I ever found a therapist good with creative people, I should tell you? I'm like, sure. I swear I never said that to her, but okay, I was going along with the gag. So she said, I have a guy, and right now he is magical, and I don't know how long the magic is going to last, and so she gave me his phone number. I called him 20 minutes later. That was on a Wednesday. I met him on a Saturday. I was living in Santa Barbara, drove down to LA with my husband. We met him, and for 3 months we did phone therapy. And I never saw him again. And it was Jungian, which I had never been exposed to. Jungian therapy is very abstract and very intellectual. And I'm thinking, this can't help. I was used to boohoo therapy. You know, where you get mad and you blame everybody, and it's so much fun and does so little good. So here's something where I'm not doing any boohoo, I'm not mad, and I'm thinking it's not going to work. Well, within 3 months, he totally turned my head around because he taught me the difference between ego and shadow. And I had gotten into ego. I was busy being a good Girl Scout, trying not to offend you, you know, trying to be your best friend. And I had gotten so good that all my dark stuff, I had just sealed it off. Now, your dark side is where all the creative juice comes from. So you can be a perfect human being and have no creative access, no access to the good stuff. So for about 3 days, I walked around my house cussing a blue streak. And I realized Kinsey had been mad at me. She had gone on strike. So here's what this therapist said to me one day on the phone. He said, what if you turn this book in late? I mean, I was coughing up a hairball. I'm a good girl. I don't turn books in late. But it's like, okay, I'm trying to cope with that. And he says, furthermore, what if you turned it in late and it wasn't very good? I thought I was going to black out. And then he said to me, do you know what? God will still let you breathe. And it was like it took the curse away. I thought, well, shoot, if God will still let me breathe, what am I worried about? So I gave up any hope of doing it right. I just surrendered to the universe. It's like, so be it. So be it. I turn it in late. So be it if it's lousy. So be it if everybody criticizes me for cussing. I don't care. And so J is for Judgment is a shadow-written book. I just let go of any control. And that's really the way I need to work. And I have to learn that lesson over and over and over, because every time I sit down to write, I get into ego. I get worried you won't like it. It's like, it's just, so that's something I'm going to work on.
So it feels like J was something of a turning point in that you allowed your darker impulses to be on the page more.
Right. Well, I quit worrying about doing it right. You know, I have to remind myself over and over, writing is about play. Painting is about play. Dancing is about play. We turn it into torture and we turn it into work, and then we don't do it well, and it's no fun. So every time I sit down to work, I struggle with the issue of wanting to be in charge. And that once I give that up and get out of my own way, I do much better.
But I think in one instance you're lucky in this point, which is that, as far as I know, you have had the same editor and the same agent for all of your books.
I've had the same editor since A is for Alibi, the same agent since B is for Berkeley.
Yeah, so to have that incredible continuity in your publishing
Right.
career, I mean, now it's not
Unheard of.
unheard of, but it's pretty close to being unheard of.
Exactly.
And so I also wonder how that factors in. Like, if you can, Sue's editor is Marion Wood, who's an amazing editor. So when you know that you have Marion having your back editorially, that also gives you some I
Well,
suppose,
they
safety.
protect me. They
Yeah.
protect me. For a while, I was writing a book a year, and I got to a point where you can either promote a book or you can write a book. I can't do both at once. You know, when I'm promoting a book, I'm in ego. When I'm writing, I'm in shadow. You don't want my shadow out here talking to you. She really cusses, you know. So I had to go to Henry Holt, which is the publisher I had at the time. There was this big meeting, and I had to sit there and explain to them that I couldn't do a book a year. And the president would go, CEOs go, well, okay, yeah, absolutely, but you'll turn this book in. I was like, no, not really, you know, can't do that anymore. So by the end of that meeting, he got that I wasn't going to do it because, this is something else this therapist taught me. First thing he taught me was about eating a death cookie. Here's and he drew this little picture of a cookie. A death cookie is when your inner self is telling you something isn't right. Your ego's job is to be your emissary. Shadow is intuition, impulse, shadow is your unconscious, your first hit on the world. Shadow will tell you if you're not in a good place. For instance, I always say, if you meet somebody, shadow will tell you if they're a bad person. So you meet somebody, shadow goes, ick, 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 and ego says, now that is not nice. I'm sure she is a perfect person. And that's the woman who will run off with your husband. You could have stopped it right there in that first moment, but you're so busy trying to be nice that you've blown it. So eating a death cookie is when shadow tells you something's not right, and your job is to take care of it. Ego's job is to take care of it. So you have to eat a death cookie. Shadow has to know that ego will die for her, and that means you have to go do really hard conversations with people, trying to protect yourself and keep yourself in a good place in the world. So going to this publisher in this big meeting explaining that I wasn't going to do a book a year, I had to eat a death cookie. And the trick is not to get into drama. Getting into drama is just a waste of time. Everybody gets mad, you get indignant, everybody cries, stomps out of the room. That's stupid. That's just a waste of time. So you have to do it diplomatically and graciously. And it's really easy to do once you listen to the dark side. But that was what that whole process was about.
So, I mean, speaking a little bit of the dark side, because W is not the only book that you published this year. You also republished Kinsey and Me.
Yes.
And that was an interesting publishing experience because some of the stories had been published in the early 1990s.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to hear more about why you decided to make them available to the wider public, and also why you decided to include additional stories of a much more personal nature.
Steve Humphrey had published this collection of short stories in a slightly different form. I dropped one or two, I added some. The personal stories were written in the 10 years after my mother's death, and they are very painful, bitter accounts of what my life was like until she died. And my parents were alcoholics, and my hesitation was like, who cares? Like everybody these days is into confessional mode, and I didn't want to.
No memoir for you then.
Yeah, but I felt it would be interesting for the reader to see the relationship between my childhood and my life and my dark side and the nature of Kinsey Millhone, because there are subterranean connections. And I felt it was time to be more transparent, to use that popular phrase. It felt risky, but at the same time I thought, I think people look at me and think, well, isn't she lucky? Isn't she lucky? She has all the success and everything's going right. And I thought, well, lucky. Okay, let's talk about luck. Let's talk about being a kid born into circumstances that are not so nice. And so the curious thing, my parents were educated, articulate, passionate about books. My father was an attorney. My mother had a degree in chemistry, taught high school chemistry for a while. They were lovely people. They just didn't parent very well. Well, I'm not sure I was perfect at it either, and I'm hoping my kids won't publish stories later. I told them I'd pay them a lot of money if they just kept their mouths shut. But,
Are you going to haunt them afterwards?
Yeah.
Because you've talked about this in another circumstance too, but anyway.
yeah. And so I thought, let's do this. So there are 9 Kinsey Millhone short stories that I've written over the past years. And then there are maybe 12 or 15 stories from my life.
Yes.
And then there's an introduction to each section, and there's an essay about detective fiction. I thought that I have opinions about these things. And it just seemed like a nice little collection.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that when I was reading the Kit Blues stories, like they really resonated with me. And even just preparing, like it suddenly struck me. You had done an interview where you mentioned that you felt your childhood ended at 5.
Right.
And of course, Kinsey's parents died when she was 5.
Exactly.
So was it strange to kind of acknowledge that direct connection finally?
Yeah, but I thought it was important. I think it's important to claim our lives, whether we were in charge of them as kids or not. Kids have no power, but I'm an adult. I have power. I can do with my childhood or any other circumstance in my life as I see fit. So many people found those stories too painful. It triggers a lot of old sorrow. And some people have pasted over that, and I don't want to look at that. But I've gotten notes from people who said, I had your childhood, and I didn't want to look at that, and I had to cry a few tears when we went through that. So I think we connect at that level.
Yeah. So just to kind of change tack, since you did bring it up that you have opinions about detective fiction.
Yes.
And I know that you took the Santa Teresa name from Ross Macdonald. And I wonder, what was it about his work that really spoke to you, especially when there were so many other detective writers and even your own father wrote crime fiction?
Well, because Ross Macdonald was writing about Santa Barbara, and I liked the tone. Now, if you analyze his books at this late date, they're really quite similar, and if he did it, they can call it a leitmotif. If I did it, they'd say I was repeating myself. So I know how the game is played. That's one reason I don't want to do the same book twice. But still, he and Raymond Chandler, James N. Cain, those writers just had this wonderful control of what they were doing. And the tone of the fiction was very attractive to me. And so when I thought about writing a detective novel, that's what I had been attracted to in my early reading. And I didn't want to do the amateur sleuth, and I wasn't well enough informed to do police procedure. So it just seemed to me the interesting issue was that lone individual looking at society, trying to put pieces together and solve a crime and see that justice is done.
Yeah, and of course at the time that you were conceiving of Kinsey, and it took several years from when you started A's for Alibi to when it was published,
Right.
you were working at the same time that Sarah Paretsky was up in Chicago, and Marcia Muller was also in California.
Marcia Muller was the first. She published Edwin of the Iron Shoes in 1977. Paretsky and I published the same year, and that sort of blew the doors open. A lot of women started writing detective fiction then.
But were you, granted this is a bit of a thing with me, because the book that I have available is an anthology of women suspense writers, and one of the authors included is Margaret Millar.
Right.
So were you reading her work at the same time, or?
In some, it's hard to remember now because I read so much, but certainly Patricia Highsmith.
Yeah.
Oh man, those were grand, and really, their women had quite a presence.
Yes, they did.
That you don't see so much of that anymore, but I mean, you see women having a presence, but you don't hear so much about Dorothy Sayers and some of those early women who laid groundwork.
I mean, you hear about Agatha Christie, and Sayers is being reissued at the moment. But I do feel like a lot of the earlier writers need to have their greater due.
I do too.
Which, as a result, is sort of why I've been clanging the bell for some of these amazing writers,
Right.
like Shirley Jackson and Margaret Millar and Dorothy B. Hughes. I could go on, but in any case, I mean, I guess I want to hear some more about your thoughts of detective fiction, not just when you were starting out, but just, do you feel that it's a device that serves you well, but you, of course, stay in the 80s. But do you feel like it's relevant for today? Do you care? I mean, I just wonder.
Sure, I care. All right, I'll go at it from this direction. The detective novel is the only form in which the reader and the writer are pitted against each other. It is a game we're playing. Mystery writers are the magicians of literature. My job is tell you a story, nothing up this sleeve, nothing up that. And my job, I'm honor bound to give you every piece of information that Kinsey Mulhern has. Your job is to see if you can figure out what's going on. My job is to do sleight of hand, deflect you, as gently and non-manipulatively as possible. You know I'm fooling you. You know I am. And the trick here is that if you figure it out, or if you get annoyed with me on page 25, I'm in trouble. If you get to the end of the book, like people did with P.S. for Peril, I'm getting letters going, I don't get it, you know? Then you're mad at me. So I've got 1 chance in 3 of doing it right. Otherwise, you're going to be mad at me. But to me, the joy of that contest, telling you the truth and letting you see if you can figure out where I'm going with that, that is just too much fun. That's too much fun. So yes, that's relevant. I'm not into serial killer books. Those bore me to tears.
I was just saying that the other day.
Yeah, if you're writing those, come have a chat with me. I'll talk you out of it. But
Well, you've also said that graphic violence is just something that you don't want to do and never really do.
well, it isn't interesting. It isn't. I mean, we all know what. I mean, especially with movies and television, we know what all that stuff looks at, and I'm more interested in the why of things, not the specifics of blood, gore, snot, and hair. Who cares? Why do we kill each other? I keep saying, go back into therapy, get your meds adjusted, quit killing each other. That's my sole mission in life. And yet every day you pick up the paper and somebody's embezzling money, somebody's robbing banks, somebody's killing their spouse. Apparently it is built into our nature, and that interests me.
The fact that seemingly good people, all it takes is one thing on top of another thing on top of another thing, and then suddenly they've completely gone over to the other side.
Well, it interests me what makes people cross the line. I know I have that kind of rage, and I have that kind of deviousness, trust me. But I'm also rule-governed, and so I lead a very orderly, lawful life. But I spend my days thinking of ways to kill people.
Not a bad
little
profession.
dichotomy in my nature.
How much time, if at all, do you have to do writing that doesn't relate to Kinsey Mulhern? And I bring this up because I understand that you have a story or an essay in a knitting anthology.
Oh, I do. Yes, thank you. Ooh. Well, all right, see, this is all Shadow stuff. Shadow tells me what I want to do. I get these requests, hundreds of requests. And so I look at them, Shadow goes, no, no, no. Yes! For instance, I got a request from the Land's End 40th anniversary catalog, asking if I would do a Kinsey Mulhern short story. And she went, yes. It was funny. It seemed funny to me. It was offbeat. And so right away, Shadow provided me a little story, and I wrote it. I got this invitation from Elizabeth Burke, whose work you may know. She was invited to contribute an essay to this knitting anthology. Shadow went, okay, we'll do that. So mine is called Teaching a Child to Knit. And it's just, because I taught my granddaughters how to knit, and it's just a set of instructions about how to teach a child to knit, even if the child is 103 years old. You know, we're all, and so that was like, then they said to me, they asked everybody to give a few lines explaining what your essay was about. So my explanation went, my essay is called Teaching a Child to Knit. This is about, how shall I put this? Teaching a child to knit. How hard is that? But it was fun to do. You know, I like to do off-grid, but I don't have a lot of time and I don't have a lot of interest in it. My strength is that I am focused on the job at hand, and I don't like to be distracted by short stories that go in somebody else's anthology. Yeah.
And I mean, I know you get this question a lot, but I have to ask it
Oh, thank
nonetheless,
you.
which is, you know, we're only 3 more books away.
I know.
And so how do you feel, like, it's weird to think of it from almost like a mortality standpoint or a retirement standpoint, but as we get closer to, and it is still going to be called Z is for Zero?
Z is for Zero.
Yes.
Yes.
So how do you make sure not to think about that?
Well, for one thing, everybody in my age range is retired, except me. I'm still working. Like, where did I get it? You know, they're playing golf, they're taking like cruises. I'm sitting in my machine suffering because these books are really hard. I'm trying to get some pity sales here. And so when I'm in a book and it's going well, there is just nothing better, nothing better. It's like heaven on earth. I think of it as putting on a fur coat. You know, it's heavy and it's warm and you're wearing it all day long. When it's not going well, which is a lot of the time, it is just excruciating. It's just excruciating. So when I'm in that excruciating place, it's like, please just let me finish this book. You know, whoever is up there, whoever is shadow, whoever's in charge, please let me get to the end. Because I think, oh man, to go to the grocery store in the middle of the day, woo, you know, to take a walk just because I want to. And so sure enough, I get to the end of a book, it's like, whoo. So for 3 days, I can go to the grocery store in the middle of the day and take a nap anytime I want. Day 4, this little voice says, and that's it? You're going to the grocery store and taking a nap and that's your life? So then I think, oh, I guess I better write another book. So what I'm saying in part is when I get to the end of Z is for Zero, there can be 2 days when I'm really one happy camper, and day 3 or 4, it's like I'll be back at it. Writing is what I do, and it is what my life is about. It is what gives structure to my days. It gives meaning to everything I do. And to be without that, I think, would be pathetic. You know, it's like, I'm not going to be on your committee. For one thing, if I were on, I'm so bossy. It's like committees are such a waste of time. It's like, I will tell you what to do. This committee meeting is now over. So I can't be on your committee. I'm not going to do volunteer work because I'm just not that nice, you know? And I'm not. And so what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to write something else. And trust me, Kinsey Milhone is not going to let me write about anybody but herself, you know. I'm on strict orders. I suppose I could come up with another series, but nobody would like it. They wouldn't. You'd be all so mad. It's like, I didn't like that character, you know. So
well, you know what happened with Ian Rankin is he tried to end the Inspector Rebus and move on to a different series, and they didn't like it, so he brought Rebus back.
See? So we'll see. For one thing, I don't want to write when the juice is gone. I have seen writers who just do beautiful work, and don't ask me to name names.
That's fine.
And yeah. And then, they keep going. They're getting older, and, it's like, stop already when you're ahead of the game. So if I'll be close to 80, and I grant you, I'm sure going to be in great shape by then, but there's a piece of me thinking, suppose I get kind of dotty, kind of daffy, which is, I guess, possible. I don't want to write bad books. I don't want to write flat books. If I don't have the guts to do it and the courage and I feel honor-bound to do the best job possible, and if I feel I'm losing it, then I'd rather hang it up as a courtesy to you.
It seems to me, and this comes back to not wanting to write the same book twice again, that you still have questions you have to ask of yourself as a writer. And so I wonder, and you don't have to necessarily share it if you feel that you need to keep it close. But do you still feel like there are so many questions that you have not asked yourself as a writer that you still can explore in these 3 more books you need to write?
Yeah, but the questions that interest me can't be answered. You know, the simple one being, why do people kill each other? You tell me. I don't know. I am fascinated by crime. I love the mindset of criminals. There's something about it just kills me. It's just so strange. I mean, my new favorite are embezzlers. You know, they're ripping off the Girl Scouts of America, and they're thinking they're not going to get caught. It's like, yes, you are. Burning Madoff, you know, come on. There's something about that I find appealing. But it's not like I have huge philosophical issues to settle. I just want to know what makes people cross the line. And there better be 26 answers to that, because I've only done
26 reasons why.
Yeah, right.
Before I open up the question to the audience, this is just a question that I personally want to know, which is, what book that you love would people be surprised that you love?
There is a book called The Speed Queen by Stuart Onan.
He's
It is a
amazing.
book I wish I'd write. It's like, why didn't I think of that? And I'll tell you the conceit. This is a book told from the point of view of a woman who's been part of some sort of nasty mass murder. And she's in prison on death row, and I think Stephen King has submitted this list of questions to her. If she can answer them before they execute her, he has agreed to pay her child's college education. The beauty of this is she answers these, I think, 50 questions, doesn't tell you what the question is. She just gives you the answer. So as a reader, you're putting together this strange, you know she has done something so nasty, and you want to not like her, but it's very dark humor. For instance, early, there's somebody, she and this guy and a woman named Natalie have done something you don't figure out till later. And she's mad because Natalie has written this book that was a bestseller about massacre. And she said, it was not a massacre. A massacre is 6 people or more, and we didn't do that. I'm like, that's so bizarre. And so you just get to read this whole thing, and you put together the crime, and it just fascinated me for the conceit of it. So anyway.
And did it cause you to pick up any of Stuart Onan's other books?
Oh
or-
yeah, I've read, Ghost Country is a good one. He's good.
He's one of my favorite writers too, as it happens, so
Yeah.
excellent. We would love to take questions. As you can see, there's a mic right in the center, so please walk up there so that we'll be able to hear and you'll be able to hear.
Okay.
Please don't be
All
shy.
right, done. No. Work up your courage, come on.
I mean, I can just keep asking questions, but we'd really love to hear
Okay.
from you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm really curious. You mentioned about your mother dying and dealing with it. Did you find it was easier to write after she died? I'm a struggling playwright. I've had one play that got $14.31. And one of the people working with me said, when you're writing, put your mother in the other room, because when you talk about the censoring voice. So did you find things opened up and were easier, or did it make a difference?
She is asking, for those who didn't hear the question, about whether writing about my mother's death was easier at some remove. I think I had to go straight into the heart of it. Those stories I wrote in the 10 years after she died, I wept and wept, and yet it is such clear, true work that 30 years after I wrote those stories, I wouldn't touch them. You know, it's like that is exactly the way it was. It is possible that some distance might give you a better perspective, but the emotional stuff, I think, is inescapable. You know, you just got to head right into it, because there is a lot of power in that. And if you want to harness it, you got to face it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll wait, don't worry.
My wife and I have read everything since A first came out. It was approximately the same time as we got married. and it was sort of something we have always done together, even to the point where I read some of it aloud.
Right.
And we've seen
You could speak
basically
into the
everything
mic.
that
Thank you.
pretty well everything has happened to Kinsey along the way as part of her job or part of her personal issues. But my question, and I've always wondered, is what would happen if Kinsey got pregnant?
What would happen?
If Kinsey got pregnant, ancienne.
That's he's asking what would happen if she got pregnant. She'd sue the doctor who prescribed the medication.
It was a terrible mistake.
I think about things like that. You
Oh,
know,
I missed that.
I think she would have a baby. Everybody else is doing it these days, you know. God, is there no morality left, I ask? I have even considered, here's what I've considered, and I've never admitted this in public. Suppose Kinsey had a baby girl who then, in 20 years, became a detective. See? So wouldn't that be good? And then you get to see Kinsey in her dotage. You get to see this daughter who's bound to be a kick-ass kid. And it would allow me to jump into the present, right? You know? But I can't work out the mathematics. I'm really dumb at math, and so I keep subtracting. If she's 38 now, so it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
No, that answers my question, and it's also it sort of fits into as well with the the occasional when family members show up and how she treats them too as well. And I always sort of wondered whether that distance would happen or whether it would bring them closer together, because all of a sudden she's got a child and they're
Yeah.
going to treat her
You're
different,
saying
and
that if
she's going to be forced to.
Yeah, if she had a child, it might close the distance between grand and possible.
But it could go the other way too as well. She doesn't want to have anything to do with their advice.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
But at the same time, how much can you have to block out a lot of reader suggestions.
Oh, I do. And I'm pretty good at it because readers have said she should have more than one dress, which is silly. They suggest that she either get a boyfriend or get rid of a boyfriend. You know, it's like, I don't want to write the scenes. I really don't. When she has a man in her life, then what do you do with him? You know, you either have to kill him or they have to break up. And then readers have opinions about that. So anyway, I won't go
Next
on.
question.
Next.
Do you ever get writer's block over a long period where you think, I just do not know what to do with this? And if you do, how do you get through that?
All right, she's asking if I ever get writer's block, which only happens about once a day. And I used to think you could power through writer's block. That is totally incorrect. Writer's block is Shadow's message to you that you are off track. So writer's block is a blessing because you have to say to yourself, Shadow blocks you because you're going in the wrong direction. When you see that block, there are a couple of things you can do. Either abandon hope altogether and start something new, or back up. I keep journals for every novel that I write. And so if I get blocked, I just go back to the beginning of the journal and start working my way forward. The answer is always there. What blocks you is you don't want to look at it. Sometimes you don't want to give up the work you've done. You get too ego involved in what you've already put on paper. But when I'm blocked, it's like, thank you, Shadow. Let me go look at this and figure out where I'm off. So be happy if you have a block. And the big block was S's for silence and T's for trespass. I thought they would do me in. You know, I'd sit at my machine thinking, I'm going to throw up right here on my keyboard. But there's no way to fight it. You just have to embrace it, and you have to wait it out. So I have an essay that I keep working on called On Writer's Block and the Husking of Black Walnuts, which I just think is because that's how I cured one of my things about it. Anyway, if I ever finish it, I'll let you know.
Next question.
I wanted to ask you, did you, when you first started writing the series, consider writing it in the third-person narrative rather than Kinsey being the voice? And if you considered that, like, what were the pros and cons, and what do you think would have happened to the story if she didn't speak?
Yeah, she's asking about first person versus third. And my choice was almost involuntary because when I started A.S. for Alibi, I'd never written a mystery novel. I knew nothing. I did not know what a private investigator did. I did not know police procedure. I did not know California criminal law, which I still don't know. But when it came time to set up the protagonist, I decided to play the part myself. It's like, I'll be her. Because the only thing I knew was being female. So I made Kinsey Milhone female, not as a protest, not as a political statement. It's like desperation. And writing in the first person keeps you in character. The trick of it is that first person can become very annoying. You know, if you don't like that voice, if the voice seems too self-satisfied or narcissistic, then you alienate your reader. So if you write first person, you almost have to write first person as though it's third. You know, third person is okay, it gives you some flexibility, but first person will keep you absolutely in the moment, and I think that gives reality to your work. So, I mean, doing multiple points of view has also allowed me to do third person, and that's fun too. It's kind of freeing.
But just to chime in before we take more questions, if you were to switch to third, you would lose the conceit of respectfully submitted.
Yes, that's right, right. She's talking about the fact that early in the books, I used to, at the end of each book, calculate how much Kinsey Milhone had earned from that case, because I was talking about a professional woman, and I thought, guess what? She's not just doing favors for her friends. She is a working woman. And I wanted the reader to understand she was supporting herself by fair means or foul. So at the end, the conceit is that each of these books is Kinsey's account of what happened after the fact. And so the ending on most books is respectfully submitted, Kinsey Milhone. That is her report to you. So I would lose that if I shifted.
Okay, next question.
What's the deal with Henry and Kinsey? It sounds like they should get married or something.
No! You have my opinion.
We'll see. I don't know. They're not going to get married, kids, you know. Although, isn't he cute? Come on, yeah. My problem with Henry Pitts is to keep him from being too perfect. So that's why you'll see him be cranky sometimes. He's so perfect. I adore him. But anyway, yes, ma'am.
We've seen some great Hollywood adaptions of book series. We've seen some awful Hollywood adaptions of book series. Have you ever given thought to having Kinsey on the screen?
There was a reason I did not ask Sue about this.
No, well, I worked in Hollywood for 15 years. I'm not gonna do it. No, reading is like a movie in the mind. You get to see her, you get to cast a character, you get to be part of that adventure. If Hollywood takes over and casts the part, who are they gonna cast? In the olden days, one of the suggestions was Sally Struthers. See? Or who was the one, there was another one who was in MASH, or was it?
Loretta Swit.
Yeah. And it's like, do you read these books? Do you have any? But Hollywood, they always have good ideas about what to do with somebody else's work. And I would understand why people cross the line. I would have to kill somebody. I don't want their money, and I don't want to give away the only power I have. This is my life's work. And if you think I'm selling out, you're crazy. I'm not going to do it. Oh, but
Next question.
Early in W, you make this, Kinsey makes the statement, it's folly to assign meaning to every chance event, yet we do it all the time. The every is telling. Do you have any coincidence that you assigned meaning to that you'd like to tell us about?
say that again.
Do you have any coincidence that you assigned meaning to? She was quoting from W.
That's a very excellent point. Because here's the deal, if you're writing detective novels, I'll just tell you, if you cannot use a coincidence middle to late in a story. if you're going to use a coincidence, you got to lead with it. You know, it's like you got to lead with it because that's the point. I do believe there is such a thing as synchronicity. Odd things happen. In a mystery novel, you can't use that as a plot device, but you can use it as a launching point. But you have to kind of own up to the fact. Now, in W, there are two storylines. One is the death of an unscrupulous private investigator named Pete Walensky. The other is a dead homeless person found in a sleeping bag on the beach who has Kinsey's name and telephone number in his pocket. Now, when I started, I knew how they connected later. And it took me 1 year to figure out which story to lead with. Because I would try one and the whole thing would collapse. I'd try it the other way and it would look coincidental. So that's a huge, important issue. And I bless you for that. Thank you.
Next question.
You indicated earlier that when you originally introduced different perspectives, that a lot of people, there was a bit of a backlash to that. And I admit I was part of that. You might have received an angry email, but we're good now. But I'm here. But I was upset because you kind of deviated from the classic detective role. And I wonder if you think that maybe it didn't, in some ways, kind of detract from Kinsey's kind of investigative prowess to add those different perspectives.
Explain to me what she asked me.
When you started adding in multiple perspectives, she, like many fans, were taken aback.
Right.
And so, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat that, but just how
Yeah,
was...
all right.
Taken aback because I thought it deviated from Kinsey's kind of inherent
yeah.
gift.
Well, you know, my job is to do my job. And to me, it solves some problems. Funneling everything through the sensibility of Kinsey Mulhone gives me some things and takes away some other things. To me, those stories are more dimensional. It's like a hologram. And not everybody takes to that. Some people want it to be strictly from her point of view, but too bad. Sorry, sweetie.
I just wanted to chime in briefly, which is to say, having read a lot of mid-century crime fiction and detective fiction, you'd be surprised how many of them used different points of view.
Oh, thank you.
So,
in the great tradition.
yes, it's actually multiple great traditions. Sir, you are the last question for the night.
All right. Would you describe a typical working day when you're writing?
Yes.
And I also wonder how many drafts you typically do.
All right, I will tell you both of those things. And this will sound like I'm not, I do a lot of exercise because I think writing is tension-filled and stressful. So my typical day, I get up in hot weather, I walk 4.5 to 5 miles first thing. Then I shower, go to my desk, usually by 8 or 8:30. I do my emails. I get on Facebook. If you want to visit, I'm on Facebook every morning that I'm home, and I chat back and forth. You can make nice comments if you're rude. And then I keep a journal for each of these novels. And the journals I do on the computer. And the journal is like a long, whiny letter I write to myself about the writing of the book. So for instance, with W is for Wasted, the manuscript was 660 double-spaced pages. The journals came to 1,298 single-spaced pages. And that's just me being stupid on paper. You know, it's me not knowing where to go. I work by trial and error. So I usually work, it's better to do page count if you're getting honest about it. I could claim I worked 8 hours, but I can sit there wasting time. I play computer solitaire, free cell is very good for that. You clean your desk, you know, I can waste a lot of time looking like I'm working when I'm not. Page count, you know, even 2 pages a day, which is not a bad place to start. It doesn't sound like much. If I can do 2 pages in 20 minutes, hot damn, I'm off the hook. If it takes me 6 hours, too bad, I sit there till it's done. Generally, I write every sentence over and over until it sounds right. So I'll do a chapter, and then I move to chapter 2. As warm-up, I go back and look at chapter 1, and you can hear sentences that are awkward or have little knots in them. So I'm smoothing it out. I'm looking at sentences that are out of place. I'm finding the tone is off or the pace is off. So I'm correcting as I do the new material. And gradually, by going back over and over and over, I get all of it right. But if I'm in chapter 25 and I think, oh shoot, I forgot that, I can always go back, God bless computers, and put it in. By the time I get to the end of a book, generally I'm ready to let it go because I have been so meticulous and I have obsessed for so long over every piece of it. So I am incapable of doing a rough draft and then going back and fixing it. In my experience, if you're 1 degree off track in chapter 1, that gap is going to get huge. So if I think I made a mistake, I fix it. And I sit there until I get it right, which is why it took me a year to figure out W.S. Spadina. So I'm slow at it, but I'm a purist when it comes to what I'm doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for coming to this great event. And most of all, thank you, Sue.
Thank
you put on a hell of a show.